All right, Doubledays getting ready for their final home game of the season here at Falcon Park. They take on the Crosscutters at 6:30. So now on our Cayuga Community College pregame show, glad to be joined by a guy we've been waiting all year to have on. It is hitting coach Mark Harris. Harry, how you doing, man?
Fine. Glad to be here.
All right, so for one, I just want to ask you about your personal coaching philosophy. You've been doing this for quite some time. If you had to boil down your philosophy into a couple of sentences, what would you say?
Be prepared to play. I think that what we try to get across to the kids is their work ethic, the preparation, their day-to-day routines should be to the point where, okay, you're preparing to go out and have success. That's the idea. Something happens in the game that, good, bad, or otherwise, you want to build on that the next day, come out. When 6:30 comes, all that work is done. You worry about playing the game, come back the next day, try to get better.
Yeah, and at this level, it's a lot of guys who have never really had that minor league experience. What do you like about having these kind of fresh faces around?
Well, hopefully they understand, first of all, about this level, first experience at it. And it's only 70 games and not 140 games like they're going to play, that they have to create their own routines, what it takes every day to get ready, what it takes every day to keep their body in shape, food-wise, workout-wise, baseball work-wise, and to last the whole season and be productive during that season.
What would you say the most common thing you have to teach guys is when they're first coming into minor league baseball?
I think that probably the biggest thing is, and it's this way all the way through, but first and foremost is most of them have never really failed before. And most of them have success of where they've been, college-wise, high school-wise, and they come into professional baseball. Not many of them have been 0 for 15, 0 for 16, 0 for 18, 0 for 22. And they have to understand that that happens to everyone, and it's not about how you're doing when you're doing well. It's about, okay, what are you going to do when you're not doing so well and how you're going to get it back. And to deal with that failure, look up on the board and not see the numbers that you're used to and try to do something about it.
With guys who have never experienced failure, how do you kind of walk that line between maybe teaching them things that they might not want to hear when they feel like they've been good at every level and also telling them things that they need to hear?
I think it's individually based. My job is, I've always said that my job is I'm a father, a psychologist, and then a hitting coach. So you have to pretty much get to know the individual about who you're working with, the kind of player you're working with. These days, old school doesn't work the way that it did when I was playing and when I was growing up, but some kids like the old school, get in your face, challenge them, that type of thing. Some kids today you have to stay away from. And the best teacher of any teacher ever is the game itself. So many times I just keep my mouth shut, and hopefully they'll learn from their results, good or bad, when they're playing. And the good ones, the ones that keep playing, are the ones that make adjustments from their results, good or bad. And those guys are the ones that keep their head above water and continue to play.
Doubledays hitting coach Mark Harris here. Now, throughout the course of the season, I've heard you drop a few baseball-isms, some funny lines that seem like they apply to baseball. What are some of your favorite baseball-isms?
Well, I have a lot of baseball-isms, and I'm learning from my dad. My dad was a ex-big leaguer in the 50s and 60s. He was old school. He was hardcore, and there's probably not a day goes by that I don't use a couple or three different ones from my dad. And the baseball-isms I use are basically the same way that you have to relate to a child sometimes. Sometimes you have to make it to where they understand what you're trying to say, maybe in real language per se. They don't understand, but when you use kind of some comparisons or things, it kind of gets the point across. So I'm pretty creative when it comes to that, and always gets a laugh or two.
What's your favorite one?
I don't know. I always, the one that kids like or that understand is obviously the hardest thing to do is let the ball get there, get into the hitting area, and wait for the ball to come to you. And I've always talked about a grizzly bear waiting at the top of the at the falls. He doesn't go out and get the salmon. The salmon always come to him. So all he has to do is just wait for him to get there. And I said you rarely see a skinny grizzly bear. So
Yeah.
that seems to be the favorite one when it comes to hitting.
Which players on the Doubledays have you used that one on this year?
Probably the most. I think it's prevalent with most of them, especially and hitting the ball the other way. You've got to let the ball get back to you. But I think probably the one that took it to heart the most to understand was Pablo O'Connor. He kind of really sunk in with him and hit home with him about letting the ball get back to where it needs to get to.
Yeah, Pablo seems like a guy who really soaks up everything you say. You've actually got a unique nickname for him, right?
I do. Popeye, he makes some pretty crazy faces when you're throwing in balls. So.
Now, Pablo was one of the 6 All-Stars on this Doubledays team. Another guy, Jacob Rhinesmith. How have you seen his swing kind of change over the course of the season?
The thing about it is Jacob has something that you like to see in hitters. He has the ability to barrel baseballs, to hit square balls up, even when he's not in the best position to do so. I think he's done well keeping his head above water. When I talk to him, I say head above water to keep fairly consistent throughout the whole season. He has a really good attitude towards learning, understanding exactly how hitting works. Knows he's got a lot of work to do, but comes to the ballpark every day real positive. And I haven't heard a negative word about him out of him all year about it, even when he's doing good or doing bad. Right. Doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, you mentioned barreling up balls. I know Rhino shares that philosophy. Carson Shaddy says he's always just trying to put good swings on baseballs instead of actually just chasing hits. He's chasing good swings. Would you say you share that kind of philosophy?
You would like to think so with everybody. The idea is obviously how many balls you're going to square up and make hard contact, and then everything comes off of that. But it still gets to the point of repeating a good base to hit from. Getting ready, getting timing, starting in time, being there on time, those type of things. And it's something that seems to change day to day. Obviously, kids are fighting timing. And if you know pitching, and the thing about a pitcher is, what's the pitcher trying to do? He's trying to upset your timing. So we have to be better than what they have on the mound that night as far as getting on time and putting good swings on the ball.
Doubledays hitting coach Mark Harris here. Now, last player-specific question. Your phone is really blowing up.
You'll understand one day when you have kids.
Yeah, okay. Another highly touted prospect on this team is Jose Sanchez, shortstop, 18 years old. He's played pretty much every day for this team. What makes him so promising?
I think that probably he plays mentally above his age as far as being able to. Good players slow things down. Good hitters slow things down. Good defensive players slow things down. And his ability to understand situations in the field, not panic. His mental clock in the infield, knowing when he has to hurry, knowing when he has time. If you watch him, he runs the field well. He's a good director of the field. He's been outstanding on relays, throws this year, as far as knowing what base to throw to. And his hitting's going to get better. He's gotten a little more physical than he was last year. He has an idea of what he needs to do, how he needs to do it. So it's very promising, somebody that plays shortstop so well at so young.
Yeah. Now, you personally have been here for a few years now. You and Jared Head have been working with this team for now 3 years. It seems like that continuity with a coaching staff at this level is pretty rare. How do you feel like that helps you guys coach these players?
I think it's just like anything. I think that once you're with a coaching staff, each guy kind of feeds off each other and knows exactly what our part is. There's a lot of experience between the three as far as professional experience is concerned. And I think first and foremost that all three of us have the ability to get the trust of our kids. And that plays out pretty big when we go out and play and go out and work, is that these guys know that we've been through it, not only here, but in various parts of baseball, either playing or scouting or being coordinators, that type of thing, that they trust that we know what we're talking about. So that's the main thing, is getting them to understand that hopefully that we're helping them get to where they need to get to.
Yeah, pitching coach Franklin Bravo, also a former player himself. Now, Harry, before we let you go, can you show us your phone case, actually? Because we got to talk about the fact that you're a Bears fan, even though you're from Virginia, right? Correct. So how did you become a Bears fan?
It's a long story. back in 1967. I was in actually a Stratomatic football league, and I got the pick of the worst teams in the league. I had the last pick of the worst teams, and the only team that was left was Chicago Bears. And I have been an individualist my whole life, and I knew from that time on nobody was ever going to root for the Bears, only me. So I have been that fan ever since. Have never wavered one day.
Favorite Bear ever?
Dan Hampton, Hall of Fame defensive tackle.
Okay.
He's kind of the epitome of the Bears. You go out there and it's got snowing and below zero and no sleeves on and bear grease on his arm and fingers going one way or the other way. And he just epitomizes, I think, what Chicago football is.
We've got a Vikings fan, Jake Irvin, and a Packers fan, Ryan Tapany, on the team. How does that make you feel?
Well, you know, it makes me feel if I can beat one of those teams one time a year, that makes me feel good. But the Bears are like locusts. Every 7 or 8 years they show up, and that keeps me, that tantalizes me enough to continue to root for them. So.
Even a footballism from this guy is just chock full of them. Mark Harris, Doubledays hitting coach. Thanks, man.
My pleasure.